Hello, fellow Met believers. I'm David Schwartzman, or as they like to call me, Davey Schwaz. I'm here with Jordan Panich, head admin of the page We Are Mets Believers, and we are Mets believers. Even though after a tough loss today, pitching looked a little bad, a little shaky, but we saw a lot of bright spots. The team after today's loss is heading into tomorrow with a 5-7 record, 2 games under 500. So let's start the show off talking about today's loss and what came out of today's loss. And in my opinion, the biggest highlight from today was seeing David Wright stick up for Travis d'Arnaud after that strikeout that obviously did not look like a strikeout. The ball was at his feet, and we finally saw David Wright not just be a leader in the clubhouse as we initially thought he would be when they announced he'd be captain, but we saw him sort of come out and be more of a physical captain, and I like to see that David Wright finally came out and was a physical captain. And also, obviously, Daniel Murphy, who also got ejected on the same play, we saw kind of prove himself as more of a, in hockey terms, alternate captain, because that's what happens. You need a guy to come out and back you up. And the positive thing that you can get out of a loss like today was you need some fire from where Bartolo Colon gave up 9 runs. You gotta find some fire somewhere, and they're gonna have to take some of the loss. Then they're really gonna have to think about, okay, what do we have to do more moving forward in terms of how is the pitching gonna give up less runs and support what's been an okay showing of the bats so far early this season. Jordan, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I gotta agree with you on the highlight from today, because the thing about that I like the most is that most of the time when you see guys get ejected for arguing balls and strikes, it's when they're at the plate. And I really like to see it's Travis d'Arnaud at the plate. David Wright realizes that's not a strike, and he's arguing. And he was just straight out, he was a terrible umpire the whole game. So I really like to see the fire in the team. It was just an ugly day altogether, starting from the first inning with the back-to-back home runs. And just the whole series with the 2 extra inning games, both around 4 hours, they just didn't have relievers, so they had to let Colon go 5 innings, and he just didn't have it. And then by the time they got to the bullpen, it was a little too late, and it was just an ugly loss.
It was just a hard series, especially when it comes to the bullpen, because obviously we saw Monday night they had that 11-inning game, and they had another extra inning game last night. So especially when it came to the bullpen, it was tough for them to take Bartolo Colon, who obviously was struggling after giving up 3 home runs in the first inning. It was tough to take him out before, I guess, inning 5, and it means that they're going to have to get quality pitching the next 3 days out of Zach Wheeler, not Rafael Montero, what was I thinking? Henry Mejia and Dylan G. So you can't. They have to have solid pitching the next 3 days. They're not going to be able to rely on the bullpen, and it's going to be something they're going to struggle with over the next 3 days. Is how are we going to limit ourselves because of what happened in the series against Anaheim? And you wish that in a series where you use so much pitching, at least maybe there'd be a positive. But they only won 2 out of 3. They obviously had that ugly loss Friday night with the walk-off hit by pitch. That was just an awful showing. Obviously, you have to think of what's going to happen to Familia after that performance. It just wasn't so positive coming out of this series. I know at least you don't want to say at least they didn't get swept. They should have won Friday night, and Bartolo Colon should not have pitched as poorly as he did today.
Yeah, it was just ugly altogether, the whole series. Friday night, it was great to see Travis d'Arnaud hit that home run. Dylan G, we've all realized ever since he's become a pitcher in the major leagues that once he gets past the 90-95 pitches, his velocity has gone down, and he's getting hurt. And I just wonder why Terry Collins has not adjusted to that and maybe taken him out a little earlier, because it seems that every game he pitches, he comes out strong, and then just when he gets to that certain point, he starts to struggle. So I'm curious if maybe in the next start we see he's going to come out a little earlier and hope to limit the damage there.
Yeah, and it kind of makes you wonder about, obviously you see Matt Harvey go down with a bad arm injury last offseason. Kind of makes you wonder why they're not being more cautious with their starting pitching. Obviously you see Zach Wheeler, you see there's a difference in the how hard he's trying to throw the ball. You see that Dylan G is not being taken out of games, so you wonder maybe they should handle their pitching a little differently, where they tell Zach Wheeler to keep it up a notch, but maybe they give him less innings keep him in the starting role, like limit him to say 4 or 5 innings max in the starting point of his career, and he can sort of work his way up to pitching 6 to 7 innings. And in terms of Dylan G, make sure he's not pitching more than 95 pitches in a game.
Yeah, I mean, there's to a certain point you can't just shut down your pitching and be completely cautious, because you need to get strong starts, and you have to let pitchers be who they are. At the same time, you need to be cautious based on the pitcher, and we saw with Matt Harvey that you can't let your pitchers just throw their arms out, and I think there's been articles about it, and I think it's become more aware in the MLB that pitchers should become more of the pitching to contact, not as much throwing their hardest stuff, and that's gonna over time limit the Tommy John surgeries. And we saw at the end of the year, we did see Matt Harvey start to do that, and we obviously didn't realize something was going on. Maybe he did, and he wasn't saying anything. Like that game I remember against Colorado when he had the complete game shutout, he only had 4 strikeouts, and his fastest pitch I think was like 95 on the night, when other nights earlier in the year it was high in the 90s. So. Right. So I think pitchers are going to start realizing they have to do that. But when it comes to pitch count and Dylan G, I mean, the difference between Dylan G going 100 pitches and Dylan G going 115 isn't the difference between Tommy John surgery and not. That's just because Dylan G himself happens to pitch better. Just does not pitch well after a certain point. So I think Terry Collins has to adjust due to the pitcher, and in this situation, Dylan G's got to come out a little earlier. Obviously, for this week, Zach Wheeler, he's been getting the strikeouts, but that's not getting it done. He's had 2 pretty bad starts so far. You really want to see him get off to a good start this week.
Right. And I guess to finish that topic off, listen, Zach Wheeler, I said it earlier in the show, in the podcast, and I said he's turning into a pitcher that's kind of like Steven Strasburg, where Steven Strasburg's ERA and wins are not something to be proud of, but his strikeouts are, and I'm fearing that's what Zach Wheeler is going to turn into. Zach Wheeler has to. I know he doesn't want to be the exact same thing as Matt Harvey, but when Matt Harvey had tremendous success, the way he pitched which was not to a strikeout and to the game itself, Zach Wheeler has to take a note from that and can't just be pitching to the strikeout anymore. His strikeouts have been fine. But my fear is that, and we saw Steven Strasburg struggled in the opening day against the Mets. I was there. I was watching. He did not have his good stuff. Obviously, he had 9 strikeouts that day. I'm not going to take that away from him. But Zach Wheeler has to learn that. I mean, he has to kind of be more of what Matt Harvey was last year. Now, we've seen early in the season that the Mets have been getting the bats. If they weren't striking out, then they were actually doing something, even though they were not they're not racking up hits, but they're still coming through the clutch. Except there is one player that is not playing fantastically, and that is Eric Young Jr., who usually gets off the hot starts. So far this year is batting 186. His strikeouts are up. So the question is, once Chris Young, who, by the way, is playing fantastically in his return from the DL tonight, he's 5 for 5 with 2 home runs. Once Chris Young returns, Jordan, is Eric Young Jr. going to be the one out of the lineup?
It's got to be him. I mean, the whole question between Eric Young and Juan Lagares was based on Juan Lagares' struggles at the plate and whether his defense can make up for his hole. And now he's batting. What's he batting? 319. So there's no question. Eric Young has done, though. I know he's batting a low average, but he's done a fantastic job with drawing walks. And he's getting some hits, but he's mostly drawing walks, getting on base. He has 5 or 6 steals already. So when he's going to be in the lineup, I really like what he's doing. Even though he's not hitting 300 like a leadoff hitter should, he's getting on base and he's igniting the offense. We're seeing a lot of games where the Mets are scoring in the first inning, and that's completely due to him. I mean, there's been some games where there's been no hits in the first inning, but the Mets have runs because of a walk, a steal, maybe an error, and a sacrifice fly or something like that. So I do like him batting the leadoff. But when Chris Young comes back, Juan Lagares has to stay in the lineup. So Eric Young is going to move down, but not move down to the minors. He's not going to be in the starting lineup anymore. I do think, though, he's going to have a significant role on the team. He's going to come in late as a pinch runner and get steals and help the team, produce some more runs late in games. The question, though, is when Chris Young returns. Now, Davey, I assume you agree with me with Lagares. Is that correct?
Yeah. Let me just add in a little something before. Obviously, it's going to be Eric Young taken out of that left field spot. Chris Young will be installed there. But the question is like this: will the Mets handle, as a better word to say, will they handle Eric Young Jr. better than Colorado did last year? If Eric Young Jr. can be handled off the bench in the correct way, then God bless the Mets. They'll be able to strive with what they have, which will be Chris Young in left field, and Eric Young will be able to come off the bench in late in games when they have a man on first and steal that base and get a man into scoring position in that 1 or 2 run deficits games. And that's what I'm hoping they can do, is handle Eric Young in a bench spot better than Colorado can last year.
Yeah, they didn't use him in the right way, and I'm just worried. There are players that just don't produce well off the bench and need to be in the lineup every day. I really hope that's not what it is with Eric Young. Chris Young was that exact guy. I mean, last year he didn't start for the A's, and he was terrible. And when he comes back, he's going to be in the lineup every day. But I really hope Eric Young can still be helpful. Now the thing is, I don't even know if it's going to be him getting hits. He's not going to be the first guy to pinch hit off the bench. He's going to be the first guy to pinch run.
Exactly.
And that's where I think it's not going to be the same, because at least I don't think it's a thing that when you're on the bench you're a different runner than you are when you're in the starting lineup. I hope there's no difference there.
He could also be. I would not be surprised if I see them put him in for defensive reasons and take out Granderson, who we've seen. He hasn't played awful, but he hasn't been a Gold Glover this year, whereas Eric Young and Juan Lagares have been Gold Glovers so far this year. So I think there are 2 uses for him off the bench. There's a glove aspect of him coming off the bench, which is what they'll most likely do. Say in this situation, Mets are down by 1 run, Lucas Duda walks, the 8th inning. Okay, they pinch run Eric Young that inning, and then when they need to make in the next inning, after they obviously, because the Mets are amazing, they're going to score that run. But the next inning, they just replace Granderson in the relief spot, and that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. That's the kind of thing where they can just put Eric Young into a pinch run, leave him in for defensive reasons.
I'm not sure. I don't know if they're going to take him out for Granderson, because you can't take out Granderson's bat, even though he hasn't really produced yet. I don't know if that's going to be his use, but he's definitely going to be helpful. Getting a guy to first to second on a steal, or second to third, which we've seen him do twice this year already. So he'll have use off the bench, but you just have to hope that there's no more questions once this decision is made. Chris Young starts producing, Juan Lagares continues to produce, and I really hope we don't get to the point where we have to contemplate the idea of Curtis Granderson on the bench, because I really, really hope that any struggles that have been so far are soon going to turn around, because I think he's going to be fine. I just hope. I believe.
Yeah. Listen, here's my thing about Curtis Granderson. I think he's come through when we've needed him to come through. And we knew he was going to strike out when we signed him. Obviously, I didn't think it was going to be as bad as 12 games in, batting 129. But I think he will improve, and this isn't Jason Bay. I'll say it like that. This isn't. I mean, batting 129 is pretty bad. But this isn't as bad as what Jason Bay was.
And at the same time, look, his batting average is 159. What I do like, though, is his on-base percentage is almost 300. It's 288.
Right.
And he's drawing a lot of walks, so he's getting on base. You obviously want to see him hit more home runs and get some more hits. He only has...
We'll see it come. I'm pretty confident in seeing that come. Right. The thing is another thing is will Lagares continue the tear that he's been on? I said it before the season began that I put down all the haters on Lagares, because I think that if you think of the way I'm not trying to make a comparison to Derek Jeter, but you look at the work ethic Derek Jeter has coming into a season, that's the kind of feeling I had looking at Lagares in spring training. I just saw, I mean, obviously I didn't see him working out live, but from the articles I saw written about him, which in those articles they wrote how he can't hit, I also read about how he's one of the hardest working guys in camp. He obviously he has the glove, and I really had confidence that he'd come through with the bat. He obviously 12 games in, he has come through with the bat. So do you think that there's any reason to doubt that he continues like this?
Look, I've got to be honest. After the first week, last week when we had this podcast, I didn't say it, but I really did doubt it. I mean, you had a good first week. I wasn't sure. After this week, and nothing's set in stone, obviously, but I really am starting to believe in Juan Lagares because I also wrote an article about this. When you look at his stats from last year, also he was able to hit, and he just had some pretty bad slumps, which really lowered his batting average. I think he's going to be able to hit, and he's not going to hit 319 the whole year, but I think if he maintains 280 and he's not fishing for strikes as he was last year,
Which
Gary
he's not
Keith,
so far this year.
yeah, Gary Keith and Ron are every at bat they say this is something he would have swung at last year, and he has a much different approach this year. He's doing a good job, and has the most RBIs on the team. We see him being aggressive on the base paths. He's been caught 2 times, but I like him being aggressive, and I want him to be stealing bases.
Right.
And the question is, when Chris Young returns, do you think they're going to use Lagares in the leadoff spot?
It's a very interesting question. I personally prefer to see him in the leadoff spot because I'd rather see Chris Young's potential power later in the lineup and Lagares' ability to hit earlier in the lineup in a spot where obviously we know Daniel Murphy can knock him in, and if Daniel Murphy can't knock him in, then David Wright can knock him in. Personally, I'll give you my honest opinion, rather. I'd love to see Chris Young in the cleanup spot and Lagares in the leadoff spot.
Well, you can't see that yet because we don't know what Chris Young's going to be.
Right, obviously, but
2 years removed.
I've been saying that from the beginning that I don't want. I think Granderson in the cleanup spot puts way too much unnecessary pressure on him.
Mm-hmm.
A guy that can hit a home run. When he came in to the Mets, we were saying, how is this small guy going to fare in the 4th spot? Is he going to be able to do it? And I think they have to leave him to a spot where he can hit a home run if he wants, but he's not expected to hit a home run. That's what I think they went wrong with Jason Bay. Was Jason Bay hit home runs when he wasn't expected to, when he was relied to hit home runs when it came to the Mets. He just couldn't do it, and obviously
Chris Granderson is 40 home runs plus in 2 straight years. They signed him.
But we said that before Jason Bay came too.
I agree, but I don't think it's unnecessary pressure for both of them to be batting cleanup. They both were proven home run hitters, and Curtis Granderson signed this 4-year deal, $60 million, knowing he's going to be in that spot. So and he's played in New York, and he's handled the pressure. So I don't think you can blame it.
Not the cleanup. He hasn't batted in the cleanup spot.
I understand that, but I mean the whole media and with pressure on him, I don't think that's the problem. I think he's going to be fine there. I don't want to move him yet. Unless Chris Young comes and he's on a tear and Curtis Granderson can't hit a lick still, then that's when you want to switch them. But I'm reluctant to switch him yet, and that's the rule we gave him.
Ideally, I'd like to see Duda in the cleanup spot. I'll tell you that. That's my first choice, is to see Duda in the cleanup spot and him hitting a home run a little more often than he does now. Okay? I like to see Curtis Granderson in the 5th spot. I think that makes for a more complete lineup than Granderson in the 4th spot, and then it kind of falls off after that. Lagares, obviously, he's been driving in runs now, but I don't know how it will shape out, and it's very interesting. Lagares has really made things interesting, and in a positive way, in terms of the lineup. He's proven himself so far, 12 games into the season. I have nothing to complain about him. Obviously, we know he has the fantastic glove, and if anything, he's impressed me more than I thought he can with his glove. I mean, he is just a phenomenal fielding outfielder, and he's a great ball player. I don't like to make this Derek Jeter analogy again, comparison again. But you saw Lagares take the haters last year that he can't select a pitch, that he fishes for those down low pitches. And we come back and we see this year, what has he done? He's completely improved his approach at the plate and how he decides the pitches that he selects to swing at.
Yeah, he's looked like a different guy up there. I'm really happy with him. I'm not moving him anywhere for a while. you love his glove in the outfield. He actually hasn't had to make any. I mean, he's made one spectacular catch in Atlanta. Other than that, he hasn't really been tested that much. But he's gonna make the plays. We know what he can do out there. I really hope he starts getting the recognition he deserves because he really is, I believe, the best center fielder, the best defensive center fielder in the game.
So do you think he's a long-term outfielder for the New York Mets?
I think so. I think just his glove already is. Well, you can't have a long-term guy who can't hit, but I think he's showing he can hit with this new approach. If he can sustain that, I think definitely, because his glove is enough. And even if let's say he hits 270, but he has that glove, he's going to be staying there. And I hope that over time they can improve the other two spots. I hope that is with Granderson becoming the guy we hoped he'd be, and then seeing what's going to happen with left field. I'm not sure what's going to happen with Chris Young and whoever they decide to sign in the offseason. But yeah, with Lagares, as of now, what we're seeing right now, you got to hope he's a future center fielder because I really like what I'm seeing.
Right. So let's move on. We're going to move on to another positive spot in this Mets organization is Rafael Montero, who's gotten himself into a great start to the 2014 minor league season. He is in AAA right now. Before today, he pitched phenomenally before today in 2 starts, I believe. He was 1-0 with a 2.45 ERA.
And he had a good start today also.
And right, he had a good start today, 6 2/3 inning pitch. Am I right?
6 1/3, 2 runs. But he's been
6 1/3 inning pitch, 2 runs. So my question to you, Jordan, is like this: should the Mets bring Montero up into their abysmal bullpen that they are currently putting out there? Who is the first to leave the bullpen?
So first, well, that's a 2-part question, and I think, yes, they should bring him up. They need more arms. It hasn't been as bad as it was the first week. The first week was just despicable. This past week was better, and the past few days, it's hard to judge because all of them were just tired, and you had an 11 inning game and a 13 inning game, so it's hard to judge them. But I think Montero's he's ready for the majors. He was great last year. He's got recognition from the ESPN guys. They all like him. I want him up, and I think Lannon has got to go. I mean, he just hasn't looked good. You have Carlos Torres that can be the long relief guy, and they've tried to make Lannon that guy, but Carlos Torres looks good. He can be the long relief person, and I want to see Montero get the shot, and I want to see him stay in the majors. And what the Cardinals did last year is a model the Mets really should look to replicate. I don't know about Syndergaard. I don't want to move around Syndergaard and put him there, but I think Montero definitely should come up right now. Today would be a perfect day because they're all. If Wheeler doesn't give them 8 innings tomorrow, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, all of the relievers are just tired. They're completely overused. So they need another fresh arm in there, and Lannon's hasn't been pitching well at all. So I think Montero should get a shot. And he's a strike thrower.
It's not going to be Montero for tomorrow. He pitched today, so that's not going to be happening for tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm just saying hypothetically. I mean, this is the time you need someone. So.
Right, and the chances are in the next day there will be a different arm in the bullpen. And at this time tomorrow, there will be a different arm in the majors in the bullpen. So my question for you, another question I have for you is like this.
Who said that?
Who said what?
Tomorrow there'll be a new...
That's what I think. I think there has to
you think? Okay, all right.
Yeah, there has to be another arm in this bullpen by this time tomorrow. There's going to have to be. I mean, they've gone extra innings in the last 3 games, and twice to extra innings in the last 3 games. And you just see by the way they had to handle Cologne today that they obviously need some more arms in the bullpen.
Kevin Burkhardt actually just tweeted, "Me thinks you will see a new reliever tomorrow in Arizona." So spot on.
What are I promise everyone who's listening right now, I did not read Kevin Burkhardt's tweet. I promise everyone. So 2 relievers that we thought we'd see in the majors were going to be Josh Edgin and Vic Black. So Jordan, who's more likely to come up faster, Vic Black or Josh Edgin?
So I think it's going to be Vic Black because he was phenomenal last year, and we traded away, Marlon Byrd for him, and also the second baseman Dilson Herrera. But he was a big part of that, and they have high expectations for him. And it was such a shame that he had such a god awful spring training because he was supposed to be the eighth inning guy. So he actually was just on the DL in Las Vegas. He just came back. He threw, I think, point one scoreless inning today or yesterday. So
he pitched a scoreless inning, meaning that it would probably be a pretty perfect situation for him to return tomorrow and pitch.
I don't know. No, you got to give him more time. He was so terrible in spring training. He just came off an injury, and now to give him just one inning, it's not enough. You need, if Vic Black's going to come up, which I hope he does, you need to give him at least another week with two or three appearances. And see him get guys out, not walk guys, because that's what he did all spring training, and the Mets can have more people walking guys in the bullpen. But Josh Edgin, unless he's spectacular in the minor leagues, which he has not been so far, I don't think we're going to see him come back unless there's a complete need, and it's just a mess over there. So I think out of those two, it's going to be Vic Black.
Right. I mean, it's just going to be interesting. Obviously, Kevin Burkhardt did tweet himself that he also thinks that there will be another arm. I don't think it's going to be Josh Edgin. And 2 years ago, when this kind of I don't remember this kind of thing happening since about 2 or 3 years ago, which was the era where Dylan G, Bobby Parnell, R.A. Dickey were those guys that would be considered to be brought up for that to add that extra arm in the bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
Or that extra fifth starter guy. I don't even know who that is now. They don't really. I mean, obviously R.A. Dickey was more of a veteran type guy. Do they even have like a type of veteran type guy that they can bring up right now, Jordan? Yeah, I mean, I guess Daisuke would be a pretty. The question is like this: would they rather go with a veteran guy, or would they rather give a younger guy?
No, but the need isn't in the rotation though. They don't need a fifth starter. Their rotation is set unless one of them starts.
They can still say they still need an arm. It's whether it's a starter or a reliever.
Yeah, they need a reliever, and Montero. I don't remember if it was.
I'm saying like this: Who is most likely to be up by tomorrow?
By tomorrow, I'd say. I don't know if they're going to bring up anyone, but if they are, I guess it's going to be Vic Black. But
I think Vic Black makes sense. I'm not saying he's going to stay in a long-term spot. I'm just saying they're going to need enough. They will need, as I and Kevin Burkhardt said, not to say that I'm on the same brain level as Kevin Burkhardt, but obviously there is a need for another arm in that bullpen.
Yeah, and they might have to go sign someone. We talked about it last week, actually. Me and Jacob, we talked about Madsen or Hanrahan, who are both available. They might have to do an
interesting move as well. I feel if they're going to sign a guy, they're probably going to send the AAA a little bit.
Yeah, but there's a need, so you might have to take a risk. Whatever, it's intriguing. We'll see how it plays out.
Right. Moving on to our next topic, Travis d'Arnaud, who I believe in the past weeks we've been saying how he's got to get his act together, has gotten his act together. As last week against Atlanta, he finally had his first hit, and in that game he was 2 for 4 with a double. And then on Friday night, he hit his first home run of the season. So, Jordan, what are your thoughts on Travis d'Arnaud after this week?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy to see. I've been really high on him for a while, telling everyone, and everybody's just bashing him. I'm seeing so much negativity around him, start record, this and that, and it's just nonsense. You got to give the guy some time. And this week he's starting to get his act together. What I loved most about everything, well, you like the home run, but I loved his at bat versus Kimbrel in Atlanta Wednesday night when he kept the rally going and brought the Mets within one. Unfortunately, they couldn't get the win there, but it was a great at bat, and I like to see him going opposite field, which he also did today and got a hit. So he's definitely improving at the plate. And I just hope this continues, and he becomes what we all hope he could be as a star catcher. And I really like what he's done with the pitching staff. And if he continues to get his act together at the plate, you might see him creep up a little higher. I don't know where. I actually mentioned in the offseason about the possibility of number 2. It's not going to happen, but I would like to see if he's going to get on base, draw walks, then bat second, then Murphy be 5th, and then just more depth in the lineup. That's just my idea. But yes, if he can become a 20 home run hitter, maybe 70, 80 RBIs with 280, 290 batting average, I'd be thrilled.
Right, and for me, in terms of Travis d'Arnaud, especially when it comes to this team, I'm all for, within the next year or so, them trying to find an exact spot in the lineup where Travis d'Arnaud really fits perfectly. And what I mean by that is Daniel Murphy was floating around that lineup for a very, very long time, and then they finally found that the 2-hole was the perfect spot for him. And where do I think Travis d'Arnaud? I think Travis d'Arnaud fits perfectly in that 5th spot. A spot where after that, whoever they decide to bat and clean up, obviously I still don't think Granderson should be there, but I guess if you're going to say Granderson's going to be there, they need somebody who's going to get singles and doubles after that cleanup spot that's going to be able to drive that cleanup guy in. And I think Travis d'Arnaud's the perfect guy for that, and I really want to see them instill Travis d'Arnaud and give him his own spot in that lineup, as we see every other team as a guy sort of progresses throughout his rookie year and into his sophomore year, he sort of gets his own role in the lineup. Obviously, he has his role as catcher, but I like to see a guy. Obviously, let's take David Wright for example, who his role in the lineup for most of his career has been that 3 spot. Carlos Beltran, when he was on the Mets, and now he's with the Yankees, his main role is the cleanup spot. We saw the same thing with a guy like Carlos Delgado, and the same thing with a guy like Jose Reyes, especially Jose Reyes, a guy that they brought up by themselves, and he found his way into that leadoff spot. So I'm saying I would like to see him get comfortable in his own spot in the lineup. Say the 5th spot is, and you think he should be in the 2-hole. I'm just saying that within the next year or so, I'd like to see them give him his own role in that lineup.
Well, it's more about him showing he can be a guy to be in a higher role than actually giving him a role, because you don't want to see them right now. If Terry Collins batted him 5th, it'd be ridiculous because he hasn't proven anything yet. So you want to see him start playing better, and you want to see him fit into where the team needs. And if they need
in 2 weeks, if he's playing the way he's been playing, he played in this last week, where he's been going 1 for 4, 2 for 4, 1 for 3, that type of pattern. I still move him as long as he's not going he's not having offers and he's not striking out a lot. I slowly give him that 5 spot a couple of times and ease him into that 5 spot where he's confident. He knows going into a game, okay, I'm going to be that 5th the guy 5th in the lineup. I'm batting behind the cleanup guy. After Curtis Granderson drives and runs, I'm then going to drive in Curtis Granderson, not with a home run necessarily, but maybe with a single or a double.
Yeah, it'd be a good role for him. I agree. But then, who do you move down in the lineup? It all depends on what happens.
I just think that
if you continue to see Ike Davis and Lucas Duda do nothing, and Chris Young doesn't show up when he returns, which I hope that doesn't happen, then yes, maybe you're going to move Travis d'Arnaud up. But then there's also Lagares. So I think it's going to be a while.
And we're in a good spot right now where Lagares is hitting. D'Arnaud's on the verge of kind of breaking out a little bit. I don't need to see d'Arnaud go 3 for 4 or 4 for 4 every single day. 2 for 4 a couple times a week, 1 for 4, and not as many offers, not as many strikeouts. He needs to add some consistency. Once we can see some consistency, then I want to see the Mets put some more trust in him and give him a more. Yeah, they have to give him that. In my opinion, they have to give him his own spot in that lineup.
Yeah.
Moving forward, we saw Daniel Murphy taking away Saturday and Sunday. We saw Daniel Murphy have a spectacular start to his season. Before Saturday, he was batting .333. Obviously, Saturday he went 0 for 7 with 3 strikeouts, and today he was 0 for 4. But what do you say about Murph so far?
I like what I've saw, and you just don't want to see those big 0 for 7 games. But besides today and yesterday, he's looked very good. He's getting those RBI singles, which you always like from him. Those early in the games, driving in Eric Young. I like that duo so far. Obviously, it's soon going to be broken up with Chris Young coming. but he's continued to be what I want from him, and I'm very happy with Daniel Murphy. And what I personally would I'd like to see sometime soon is an extension. Actually, I think he's really earned it.
I was
He's
just
going to
about
be
to ask you
free.
that.
He's going to be a free agent this offseason, and I'm really afraid. He's gotten his name out a little bit. I'm afraid someone's going to offer him a 4-year. I don't even know what the money now. It could be ridiculous, and the Mets, I don't
Right.
even know, are not going to pay up for that.
I was
So
literally about to ask you, what is Daniel Murphy's future with this team? And I 100% agree with you. They have to put a deal out on the table now. He's bound to get his name out there soon. I mean,
I think it's already out enough. I think right now, if he was a free agent, he'd be getting over $10 million a year. And
yeah, you'd see teams like the A's, the Red Sox, guys with teams with smart general managers find a guy like Daniel Murphy very appealing, and the Mets have to take advantage. Obviously he's instilled himself into the Mets lineup, as I was just saying, in that 2 spot. He's the perfect guy for that 2 spot. They have to re-sign him. I love Daniel Murphy to death. He's just he's a great story. I mean, you look at it. He came up as an outfielder. He had a lot of struggles in the field. They brought him back down. They tried him at first base. He kind of got pushed around a little bit from injury. He got injured. Ike Davis came up. Then Daniel Murphy got pushed around a little bit. They tried him at second base. He wasn't the best fielding second baseman, but they knew they needed his bat in the lineup. He's improved himself as a fielder. Every single day, I feel like he's getting better at the plate. Obviously, the last 2 days, he has not taken away the last 2 days. But the Mets right now need a guy like Daniel Murphy. They cannot let him go away through free agency. I'm really gonna. That's one of the things. I'm sure Sandy Anderson's looking at and saying right now. I hope he's saying, listen, we need to lock up Daniel Murphy so that we don't have to worry about second base in the next 3 years. We can now solidify our bullpen. We can solidify our outfield. Hopefully, they won't even need to. Hopefully, Juan Lagares and as I said before, Chris Young are more of a long-term solution. I'm not going to get into that now, but they can't have second base as an issue coming into next season.
yeah, the fact of the matter is, and I hate to say it, and as a New York organization, this should not be the case, but the fact of the matter is, if the Mets cannot extend Daniel Murphy before the season ends, he's not going to be returning to the Mets. I don't think they're going to be able to re-sign him. There's too many other teams that are willing to spend more money that are going to go out and get him. So
second base it's very rare to have a very, very good second baseman, and Daniel Murphy it might be statistically even that Daniel Murphy is the best second baseman in the league so far this year. I would not be surprised if that's the case.
Chase Utley's been ridiculous, but I know what you mean. I mean, over the past few years, he's continually.
Consistency is the biggest thing for me, and Daniel Murphy, underratedly through the league, all Mets fans know it, but underratedly through the league, Daniel Murphy has been one of the most consistent second basemen in the league.
I gotta agree with that. I mean, he goes through slumps, but yeah, he's been producing. He's been 280 plus for 2 straight years, and he's got off to a quick start this year. And I really hope he's the second baseman of the future.
All right, let's move on to our next topic, as I like to call losses with a bright side. Obviously, we've seen the Mets lose 7 times so far this season of the 12 games that they've played, but a lot of those losses have come with a bright side. We saw the first sweep. They've had leads in just about every single loss that they've had so far this season. They scored first in the first 3 losses of the season. Obviously, this past Friday night, they lost on a walk-off hit by pitch, and we saw them be resilient. We saw that they were very resilient in a game that most people thought was dead already. The game against Atlanta this past week, where they were down 4-0, scored 3 in the 9th off Craig Kimbrell, and then Ruben Tejada struck out with a man on third. So, Jordan, what do you have to say about the way the Mets have been losing so far?
A loss is a loss, and it's hard to see any team lose. If there's one game I'm gonna pick that I guess had the biggest upside in a loss was as I mentioned before, the Wednesday game in Atlanta, where the Mets scored 3 runs off Craig Kimbrell. Lagares had a 2-run single. Darno had an RBI single. That was great to see. But the Mets, as you mentioned, have been getting early leads. That's a lot thanks to Eric Young, who's been igniting the offense in the first inning. And they've scored first in most of their games. So I guess that's the bright side there. But overall, besides, I guess, that Atlanta game, you can't see... I mean, even the Atlanta game, you hate to see them lose. Any game you hate to see them lose. So,
usually the teams that you see struggle a little bit in the beginning and then break out sort of halfway through are the ones that are losing after having leads, the ones that are losing one-run games, and that's what I feel like I'm seeing so far this season. Are the bullpen's faltering a little bit, but and I think the bright side that you could say to this is it's a I mean, there are a lot of other options for the Mets when it comes to the bullpen. It happens to be they have a lot of pitching options. So if you say right now the bullpen is not doing that well, I don't want to say it's okay, but there's a lot to come. You know, they can go to the AAA and find some guys to come up and possibly produce at a better level than what has been produced so far by this bullpen. So it's definitely a much different look in the beginning of this season than we've seen in a while. The last 2 seasons, we saw very, very hot starts.
Yeah.
And then they just fall halfway. The feel that I have to this team so far is not that they're an amazing ball club, but they seem a little more experienced, and they seem a little more like they know why they're losing, and they look like they can fix it. Do you see that at all? I just see I see Granderson, who goes out there every day. Obviously, he's a very big veteran. You see David Wright, who's also a big veteran. You can sense their presence on that team, making it seem like, okay, a loss is a loss, but you got to get by it, especially a game like today where they lost 14-2. I hate to bring it back up.
Mm-hmm.
And Cologne gave up 9 runs. But you saw David Wright get angry at the ump, but I'm sure that he was also angry at the team after and saying, listen, we can't do this anymore. You can't play as pathetically as they did today, and they can't pitch as pathetically as they did today. They have to improve if they want to go places.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's ways to fix this team, and once Syndergaard comes up, people don't realize this, but once Syndergaard comes up, unless they want to go with the 6-man rotation, that's gonna push one of their starters out, and they're gonna go to the bullpen, and then eventually DeGrom and Montero are gonna come up, and I think as the bullpen solidifies, I think the team's going to start winning more games, and I really believe this team has it in them. We are Mets believers. That's why I have this page. You got to believe they have talent. I think they can do it, and I'm really excited for so many people are negative about this start, which hasn't been the start of the past few years, but I really think this team has it in them, and you got to stay positive.
Right. Okay. Here is our last segment, and it's a new one actually. It's the week to come, as we've already started the regular season. Now every week we will tell you about what's upcoming storylines for the next week. We'll start off with Zach Wheeler, who is pitching tomorrow. Zach Wheeler has to come through clutch tomorrow because they don't really have a bullpen to go to if he falters. I don't know if it's going to put an extra pressure on Wheeler. I hope it doesn't, but it's a good time for him to sort of say, okay, my first few starts weren't good, but I'm okay. I'm not going to struggle the rest of the way. What do you have to say about Wheeler?
Yeah, forget about the bullpen, and that's a huge second part to it. But even without the whole bullpen issue, you need Zach Wheeler to have a strong start here because I'm a little worried. I mean, he's had 2 pretty bad starts so far, and I want to see him go farther into games. I want to see him be more, just be more of the guy he was last year, and I really hope that tomorrow he just turns things around and starts to pitch like that guy we saw.
He has to stop pitching to the strikeout.
Yeah.
And I hope they're telling him that because that's I don't like to say that I know more than the coaches do, but I think everyone can agree that that's what's going on right now.
Every at bat he's falling through. It's 3-2 count. He's
going way too deep into counts. He has to throw heat with confidence and not. I don't know if he's intentionally trying to get strikeouts, but he has to stop trying to get strikeouts, obviously. Chris Young is going to be coming up this week. Obviously, as I previously said, he went 5 for 5 today with 2 home runs. So what do you think? How do you think they're going to handle Chris Young when it comes to the lineup?
Well, I think he's going to be batting 5th because neither of Davis or Duda has stepped up, which is a totally different topic. I think he's going to bat 5th. I really hope he gets out of the gate strong. We desperately need another hot bat in the lineup right now. We thought we had Murphy hot for a little bit. Maybe not. We have Lagares hot. That's really it. I mean, Darno's hitting a little bit now, but you just need more production from guys in the lineup. So I really hope Chris Young gets off to a hot start to the season, and no one regrets that signing in the offseason. which many did question. I mean, it was $7.25 million to a guy that really hasn't is 2 or 3 years removed from a strong full season in the majors. So he's going to come up sometime this week. It probably won't be tomorrow. It'll probably be either Terry Collins said it'll either be at the end of the series in Arizona or back at home when the Mets play the Braves this weekend, the upcoming weekend. So you want to see him get off to a hot start. And we mentioned Zach Wheeler, and maybe we can escape Arizona with a new shortstop. I don't know. They have a couple, so
maybe. You just we'll end off like this. You just said Davis and Duda is a different topic, and that's this topic. So it seems like we talk about that every single. It's kind of like our own little segment. What's going on at first base? So what do you have to say about what's going on at first base?
they just have to make up their minds. I mean, last week I talked about how the Mets should have switched to Ike Davis because he had that good weekend with the walk-off grand slam. But you have to pick one guy and give him an extended look. And I don't care if you're facing a lefty on the mound. If you are the starting first baseman and your team trusts in you, then you are going to start against the opposing against a left-handed batter, a left-handed pitcher. If you're a left-handed batter, so they have to pick one guy. I don't care who it is right now, even because both of them are lost. Pick one guy, stick with him for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Stick with him, no platoons, see what he can do, then give it to the other guy, and pick one. And if not, then I think if this drags on, you're going to have to move Daniel Murphy to first base and put Eric Young at second base, because you can't have this ongoing problem at first base through the whole season where it's just this game, oh, he's good, he has the upper hand, and this guy, oh, what's going to happen, back and forth. You have to have a stable lineup. You don't see good teams with just question marks throughout the whole season and who's starting this game, who's starting this game. You need a stable lineup. You need to have consistency, and Terry Collins is lacking that. And I don't mean consistency in production, which we also need. I mean consistency with Terry Collins saying something, being true to it, and developing a lineup that stays there for a week straight, and people can get accustomed to their spot, and they can start to mold as a team instead of there being changes every day.
I 100% agree with you on that. So tomorrow the Mets start a 3-game series with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and then on Friday they come back home to Citi Field to face Atlanta. That's the show. I'm David Schwartzman. This is Jordan Panich along with me. Keep believing.